Awesome.
Just tie it right in there and we will be good.
Sweet.
Right, hello, land of YouTube.
Hey everyone.
Right.
Very cool.
So I of course am Danielle from CA House Music, and we have Ryan with us today.
Hello.
We are going to be taking a look at the iconic SM58 by SHURE.
Truly an iconic microphone.
It truly is. It truly is. And the most durable microphone.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's iconic mic week in SureLand. Yesterday was May 5th, and yes, it is also Star Wars month, which I'm a big fan of. But this week is a celebration of Shure's iconic microphones. So yesterday, the 5th, was the celebration of Shure's Super 55 microphone. And
Absolutely.
everyone knows that mic is the Elvis microphone.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's got like the car grill
Right.
sort of look. Or,
I thought that was very, very interesting. When
Yeah.
they mentioned that, like how it came from, what was it, his Oldsmobile or his...
I think you're right. I think it was an Oldsmobile. So I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's probably historically correct.
Yeah.
But to me, it always looked like, like an old car with the grill,
Right.
but like kind of like old planes too.
Oh, wow.
Because
yeah.
like Shure's history, here's a history lesson for everyone. Shure started in the 30s
Right.
as a microphone company, and their microphones were definitely adopted by military, because that's what
Yeah,
World War II.
back
We got
then.
involved with World War II not too long after that,
Right.
but definitely used in military applications and
Yeah.
radio broadcasts and all that fun stuff. But there's a bunch of technological advancements that have happened,
right,
since
of
the
course.
I think the Super 55 was originally introduced in like the late 30s,
Right.
something like that. And it's gone through a couple revisions. But the microphone, the Super 55 microphone, has the same capsule as a PGA 48, or
Okay.
I'm sorry, an SM48 microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is, it's all variations on Shure's Unidyne technology, which is what they introduced in the 30s. That was
Right.
their technology. Because prior to that, microphones were either omnidirectional or bidirectional. And I'm a big movie fan. I just
Yeah.
watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, love
With
it.
George Clooney,
Love
and
it.
when the Soggy Bottom Boys sing into the
Right.
guy's can,
Yep.
that's an old, probably an omnidirectional.
Right,
microphone,
yeah.
right? And that's like in the 20s. And,
Oh my
even
God.
before that.
That's one of my favorites. That's one of my top favorites. It's
That's
so amazing.
It's a great movie. But the Super 55, and really what Shure did was they their Unidyne technology shrunk down that pickup pattern to what we kind of know as a cardioid pickup
Okay.
pattern, that heart-shaped thing. Because what you would have to do, it was really difficult to make a cardioid microphone back then, because
Yeah.
the engineering and
Right.
all the design involved to shrinking down the pickup pattern behind the microphone.
Right.
That's why when you sing into an SM58, or if you look at like a frequency plot, like a polar pattern plot, kind of looks like a heart shape.
Okay.
So you're picking up right in front of the microphone, and it's picking up a little bit behind, but there's air vents, there's rejection considerations to be made. So when you're off axis from the microphone, that's why it's quieter behind the
Right.
microphone than right in front. So the Super 55, that's with the Unidyne microphones and all that. So all of that kind of started in the late 30s and through the 40s and into the
Right.
50s. So there, like I was saying, there were little changes made, but the design that we have now for the Super 55 is from the PGA 40, I'm sorry, I keep saying that, the SM48 capsule, and that was done in like the late 80s.
Okay.
So where we're at with the Super 55 now, it's all similar to that SM48 capsule, original Unidyne 2 technology, and that microphone hasn't changed. Maybe
Right.
there's been some updates here or there, but on the external,
Yeah.
no difference. Still looks like an old car.
Right. Well, I mean, once you've gotten into a pattern, they spent decades of saying, is this going to work? How can we better this? And once it obviously is working out really well now
Yeah.
with what, all the technological advances, they've come along to get.
Without a doubt. And I mean, everyone uses Shure microphones, right?
Right.
That's,
Right.
iconic, legendary name in the music industry. But back then, I mean, you had German microphones. Shure is the premier American
Right.
microphone, I would
Yeah.
say. It's appeared on stamps,
Yeah.
which is pretty sweet.
Right.
Everyone
yeah.
knows Elvis uses it. Frank Sinatra used it.
Yeah.
My favorite, I'm a big Metallica fan, so James Hetfield and Rob Trujillo, when he steps up to the mic, they're using, the Super 55. Theirs
Yeah.
are cool and, blacked out.
Oh man, I really love the blacked out ones.
Yeah.
I like the one with the blue,
Mm-hmm.
the padding too.
Totally.
And yeah, I mean, you even see tattoos. Like most of when somebody gets a microphone tattoo, it's like there's the 55.
Yeah, and to that point, when someone thinks of a microphone,
Yep.
it's like the Conan O'Brien or
Right,
David
yeah.
Letterman, microphone on the desk. It's most of the time it's a Shure or some sort
Yeah.
of like big fancy microphone. In a lot of cases, that Super 55 that is kind of the look.
Yeah.
And it's Shure is really what I really like about them is that they really embrace the heritage because it's a strong. I mean, there's the military aspect of Shure's history. With their microphones. Presidents have used Shure microphones, and we'll get into the SM58, of course, because SM58 Day is coming up on Sunday.
It is, yes, SM58 Day.
So celebrate. Presidents use Shure microphones.
Yeah.
There's an actual bundle that you can order from Shure. It's it used to be called the VIP kit, but what it is, it's 3 SM57s.
Wow.
In like a special little mount, maybe a little bit different now because different presidents have different requests, for what microphones are with it. But it's always a Shure. It's always an SM58 or an SM57 with presidents, which is pretty crazy. And the reason for that is because of the reliability.
I was going to say, yeah.
You mentioned it earlier, Danielle, like Shure microphones are known for being indestructible.
Yeah.
We're not going to do any destruction tests
Right,
today,
yeah.
unfortunately.
No destruction. No SM58s were hurt in the making.
Exactly. But they're rock solid.
Yeah.
Really what it means is that if you're going to a gig and something rolls out of the car or something gets stepped on,
right.
The on a 58 the ball grill gets smashed in. Yeah. Guess what? The mic's gonna work.
Yeah.
Adds
character.
Yeah, it adds character, right? But so that's the Super 55. So that's Shure's kind of their flagship historical microphone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you want that classic sound, and the good thing about Shure microphones is they're not overly, they don't really affect the tone all that much. There's a little bit of a boost on high end for clarity, even with an SM58, but it's not like a microphone with a transformer or a tube in there.
Right.
It's not going to give you a ton of that harmonic color, if you will. The reason for that is, and why people rely on Shure, it's what you put into it is what you get out of it. It's a neutral, transparent thing, which is really important. When you're in like very discerning recording situations. It's great for live because you want to have a really kind of a clean slate when you're mixing a live show, or if you're a performer, you want everything to be crystal clear. Now obviously there's no rules.
I was gonna say, so you can pretty much, like you said, James Hetfield from Metallica can use it, Conan O'Brien on a talk show can use it, so it's obviously very versatile.
Yeah, exactly, and it's that clarity, it's neutral character, I think, is why the Super 55 and why it's so revered. But as far as the big one coming up here on Sunday, SM58 Day, I've got one here. The SM58 is probably the most popular.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely.
And it was, so we can go through some quick history with it, but if anyone doesn't know, SM in the SM58 name, what that means is studio microphone.
I did not know that until I researched
There you
it.
go.
I had no idea. I'm just like, I'm sure there's a great meaning for, it's as simple as that. It is as simple as that.
Yeah, it's studio microphone. It was, it came out in the 60s is when I think like mid 60s. I know the 57 came out first and then the 58 right behind it. And what those microphones were the Unidyne 3 technology that Shure came out with. And Shure wanted to come out with a microphone that would work extremely well in broadcast. Because, not too long before that, television started making their ways into, homes across the United States and, across the world. And the Super 55, as great as it is, for a talk show, news programs, variety hours, broadcasters, and Shure, basically it was a team effort to come up with something that was low profile. And the SM58 handle, the SM57 handle is, it's not shiny. It's like a matte finish, so it's non-reflective, and it's a more low profile microphone.
I was gonna say, as you're holding it,
Right.
I mean, it's very straight to the point.
Totally. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're a performer, you don't want like the big.
Right.
But that's a look thing. That's an artistic choice. But back in the day, in the '60s, this was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's remained virtually unchanged. There's been, similar to the Super 55 and pretty much all of Shure's microphones, there's been little tweaks here and there throughout the years to keep the cost affordable. A SM58 it's on sale this month.
Yes.
Which is cool. But it's, remained the same price for a long time.
Very, very long time.
And that's really important to Shure.
Yeah. So would you say, has the proximity effect in the SM58, has that been like a focal point from the very beginning with them, or has it been something they've been building up over time?
Yeah, generally, well, I guess even, back in the 30s and during the war, the United States involvement in the war, you didn't want a whole bunch of bass. You needed something that was just clear and that can cut through.
Mm-hmm.
But then what proximity effect is when you get closer to the microphone, the more bass there is. So when in the 60s, that was the Beatles, right? And over in England, they were experimenting at Abbey Road with like close microphone, close miking and amplifier.
Right, yeah.
And all of this is going to tie together, but SM58 is virtually indestructible, right? You can't. There's crazy loud sounds out there in the world, like jet engines. And,
I was going to say, there's many things that you could technically hook.
Yeah, a SpaceX, Dragon,
yeah.
rocket or whatever. You're probably not going to blow out the microphone. You'll blow up your mixer or your speakers. With that sound being played back. But the SM58, it can handle like 150 plus dB.
Right. I was like, that's one of the most interesting things to me, anyway, about that microphone is the fact that Sure, you can stand on stage and sing through it, but you can mic that guitar. You can mic that drum set. Like you said, you can literally put it next to like an airplane, a rocket.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But it's not going to die. It's going to blow up whatever's behind it.
That's right.
Know?
Exactly. But as far as the proximity effect thing, what that allowed, you can get closer to the source with microphones. Because I remember, going through music school and, hearing all the stories and anecdotes about, back in the day with recording engineering, it was all like, guys at Intel or they're all in white lab coats and, you have to position the microphone and, do that, all that stuff. And honestly, a microphone being able to handle a louder source, like a guitar amp or something like that, be it a lot closer to the cone and the speaker, that's really important. And I'm a guitar player. There's a reason why an SM57 is on pretty much every guitar cabinet, every recording, and it's great when it's blended with things. But if you just have an SM57 and a guitar amp, and you just move around and kind of experiment with the microphone and where it's placed, you can get a really bassy, thick sound. It doesn't have to be an ice picky, super bright thing. The microphone's really versatile in that regard. The SM58, I've used it, like in my band, we've got SM58 microphones and we perform live. And, you can use them on drums, snare drums, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's no rules, like I said earlier with this stuff. You can use it on anything. It's going to sound really true to what the actual source is.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. But yeah, everyone uses the SM58. You'd be hard pressed to find, a live performance where they're not being used.
Yeah, there's one not there. Yeah, and a handful of people that I know use them. They are one of the top selling mics in our store, of course. You know, if somebody's like, hey, I need a vocal mic, I don't want something cheap, but I want something good, we're like, SM58, let's go, you know?
It's true. I mean, there's Shure has extremely expensive microphones, and they're used for different applications, right? And really what, how I've kind of learned and approached engineering and, be it my own music or friends or, doing a live show or something like that, you want to choose the right mic for the job. If you're a loud metal band, you're probably not going to put a really nice ribbon or condenser microphone like on stage. There's ways to be appropriate with that sort of a thing. But for an end-all be-all solution, I mean, the SM58 is it. Like you can get really esoteric and tweaky and get really into the weeds with microphone stuff, which is awesome. I do that myself.
Totally.
But there's the time and a place. And when it comes to live shows, you need reliability. You need a certain level of quality as far as the tone. This is it. And Shure has other options too, right? Like they have the PGA series of microphones. PG Alta is what that is, and those are the more affordable version of Shure's microphones. And we kind of mentioned it, but all this month, Shure's microphones are on sale. So all of their wired microphones are on sale the entire month of May, which is awesome. And CA House has microphones in stock. We can special order things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Come in, check them out. We've got that whole cabinet right up front filled. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for, hit us up. We got you.
If you need some pencil condensers or SM81s or anything more specialized, then CA House can handle it. But so PGA, that is an entire line of wired microphones that, from a price point perspective, sits underneath the SM studio microphone line, right? So you have PGA 48s, 50 PGA 58s.
Yeah, right.
There's wired versions. They have PGA 52 kick drum microphone. They kind of have an entire complement of microphones. So if you're more budget conscious, look at the PGA microphones. It's still Shure quality as far as the make and how reliable the microphones are. From a tone wise perspective, it's there. It's a different voicing than an SM microphone or even a Beta. But in that $50-$75 range of microphones, it's awesome. They're fantastic mics.
So about you mentioned the Beta, the Beta 58. Now, what is the difference? Like, is there a stark difference between your regular 58 and then your Beta?
Yeah, definitely. So the one thing that I've learned, so Beta microphones, what makes them different is the neodymium magnet that's inside of the microphones. Now that changes the tone and the voicing of the microphone, where Beta, compared to an SM58 or a PGA 58, the Beta version is going to have a little bit more clarity and attack to the tone, and that's because of neodymium. So, funny enough, I play guitar, but I play bass in my band right now, and bass players really like neodymium speakers because of their quick attack time. So it's, and remember we're talking like milliseconds here, or even less than milliseconds, but you get a way quicker attack. So when you're finger picking, or you just get a lot more immediacy to your tone and to your playing. And even on Beta microphones, for instance, like a Beta 57, those are great on snare drums, so you can get a really strong snap or crack out of the snare.
Right.
SM58s are awesome for snare drums, but Beta microphones, they have that neodymium magnet in there. They're a little bit brighter, but it's a different tool. Like a lot of my favorite drummers use Beta microphones. Mike Mangini uses Beta microphones. Simon Phillips from Toto and Protocol and his own stuff, and tons of other artists' recordings that he's on, he uses Beta microphones all the time in the studio.
So mostly that one, so you could use it for vocals, but overall you probably want to keep it for instruments?
Yeah, so there's in Beta, and really in all, Shure, in the PGA, the SM line, and Beta, there's similar model numbers. So there's a Beta 57, there's an SM57, right? SM57 versus Beta 57. only difference is that neodymium magnet that's in the Beta 57. And it's not like a cigar shape, but it's similar to an SM57, so you can still use it, you know, on guitar amps or bass amps or what have you. You know?
See, that's just my favorite part. You can use it for several different things.
Yes.
Several different things. That's why I would have one in my arsenal. That's why you should have one in yours. Yep. If you don't already. Like I said, I know a handful of people that already do.
Yeah. And they're, I mean, in all things considered, I mean, Shure microphones are extremely affordable. You know, they're on sale this month, of course, so you can save some more bucks. But Shure has different microphones for different tools. So they have small pencil condensers, you know, for overheads for drums, or if you wanted to, you know, do an acoustic guitar, something like that. There's Beta 87s in like all the different pickup pattern, puller pattern varieties that Shure has, so you can find the perfect microphone for your voice. Male and female vocals, you know, percussion, you name it. You know, Shure's going to have, you know, a solution for it. So, and even more specialized, there's kick drum microphones. I think I mentioned the PGA, you know, 52 earlier. There's the Beta 52, which is like a super classic, you know, kick drum microphone.
Right.
That's a standard. And it goes on and on. I mean, and that's really, you know, why I'm here today. It's just to, you know, kind of talk about, obviously, the history, you know, with these iconic mics, which we're celebrating this week. But yeah, I mean, really, it's, you know, in Shure land, and the folks at CA House can help you, is figuring out what you're doing. You know, are you a guitar player? Are you a vocalist? Are you a, you know, a saxophone player? We need to figure out what you're needing the microphone for. Are you recording? Are you playing live? You know, is this for your church or, you know, band? You know, something like that. And then we can kind of figure out what would be the right microphone for you. You know, and we have this incredible menu of mics to choose from. You know, so getting you something that's going to be appropriate, that's at the right price, and something that's going to, you know, sound incredible. You know, that's the entire goal here.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, it's live performance as far as bands go, churches. You know, if you're doing, you know, something at a school, you know.
Yeah, SM58s are great for schools because the mics are, you can beat them up.
Oh yeah. Right.
And they'll still work. And Shure has replacement parts, of course. So yeah, keep them looking good.
Karaoke. Because God knows in karaoke, when they're just having the greatest night of their life, mic might hit the ground a few times.
That's true. And if the mic is strong enough for Henry Rollins,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, you know, any metal bands, you know, where it's all taped up, and the mic is going to be the least of your worries in that instance.
I've seen a few of them that have some tape on them, but it's really not, I mean, it's funny because like the outer, it's just like, wow, it still sounds the day they came out of the box, you know?
Exactly.
So that don't say something.
It's true. It's true. Oh, and here's a fun tip I just remembered. So I get asked all the time, what's the difference between the SM57 and the SM58? And here's a little tip. The only difference is the pop filter. On the inside of the microphone, it's the same guts. So if you take off the grill, the ball grill here on this SM58, that looks like the old Unidyne.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Mics from Shure.
Straight off, yeah.
You know? And it's really similar to an SM57. So the SM57 has that swivel, you know, sort of windscreen on it, or grill, if you will. But as far as the internals of the mic, they're virtually the same.
Right. So I mean, if you dent that grill and for some reason that really bothers you, and you're just like, I can't live with it.
Unscrew it.
Put a new one on there. You're good to go.
Yep. And Shure, I mean, Shure's based out of Illinois. They're in Chicago. They have extremely fast turnaround time with repairs and support. You know, they've helped me out a million times. They're awesome. But yeah, I mean, do you have any questions, Danielle, or anything that we should cover here for the folks at home?
We've covered quite a good bit, especially with the differences between, you know, well, we did, you know, the Shure 55, of course, which I think is just super, super interesting. I love the history on that and just where it's come up from decades and decades ago. And like you were saying, you know, they used it in the war. And I was listening recently to the differences in the audios from people speaking through them back then all the way up until now. And it's almost, it's interesting to me and almost nostalgic in a way, although, you know, we weren't there, just to hear, you know, that little bit of crackling in the atmosphere in the background of those, well, I don't know, you know, they were, I hate to say, you can tell my age, I almost wanted to say podcast, and stuff like that, and then to see now, but speaking of podcasts, those can obviously be used for that, though, for the 55,
yep. Yeah. And one thing we didn't mention, so all of those microphones are dynamic microphones. You know, Shure obviously makes fantastic condenser mics. Their KSM series of mics for studio use are fantastic. Really open and airy sounding and really pure. But these are all dynamic microphones, so you want to be really close to the microphone to get good proximity effect and pickup,
right?
And enough, you know, gain going into the you know, you just want a strong signal. So the microphone's ideally going to be close to the source. That's, and you get more bass that way. That's proximity effect. But yeah, I mean, I've seen podcasters use SM58s. You know, there's streamers that do it. Shure has other microphones for that sort of a thing, like the NV7, which is the USB podcast version of the SM7B, which is like, that's the podcast microphone out there. But no, I mean, there's, you know, Super 55, if that's, especially if there's like a vintage look thing going on. Like imagine if you're doing like a classic cars podcast or something like that.
Right.
It kind of,
It's
you know
like,
what I'm saying?
I think this might be what I'm for sure using.
Aesthetically, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, so really, what we're getting at with the whole dynamic microphone thing, what comes with dynamic microphones and also the cardioid pickup pattern is off-axis rejection. So when you're speaking into a microphone, what's going on back here and around the microphone is going to be picked up a lot less than the primary source right in front.
Right.
Versus a condenser microphone with a cardioid pickup pattern. The condenser element is a lot more sensitive than what's going on in the SM58. So that's why it's used in a lot of studio applications as well for broadcast, because you know, you can have the announcer there and you have the live studio audience. You're not going to pick up the live studio audience all that much, which is a good thing. So especially in podcasts too, you know, you can just have a really nice controlled sort of sound in production happening. But other than that, geez, I'm just looking over our notes.
We were just like,
I mean, it's a for me, the historical aspect of it is, it's pretty wild. You know, there's if you go on Shure's website, you can find there's a couple different, you know, PDFs or, you know, documents out there that kind of go through the history and the story of Shure and these different microphones. There's one called the story of the Unidyne, or the Unidyne story, and that's Shure's early history. So from founding, all of the early iterations and engineering and patents and all these new microphones and technologies that they were working on. I mean, it's fascinating because I mean, before that, you know, remember, we're almost at 100 years, right? And like recorded music is
where it's come from.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're looking at is all of just a really good snapshot and kind of, you know, a really good history lesson, if you will, on where these microphones come from, because they're young. You know? Like this is a fairly new technology, all things considered, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier too, like you were watching, you know, Brother Where Art Thou, and it was them singing into a can. So like the historic aspect of this is where we were, this is where we are.
Right.
You know, and I always thought it was interesting to watch the technological advances, because 100 years, I mean, it sounds like a long time, but really.
Yeah, I mean, if we're you know, pulling Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know, 100 years is like, you know, less than a blink of an eye, and you know, the expanse of time, if you will. But it really, what it is, it's there's a crazy amount of innovation. The cool thing about Shure is that their designs are well researched and engineered to where you know, they're not going to come out with like a newfangled SM58 every couple of years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And especially if you can't break it in the first place.
Right.
It's a really bad joke. I'm sorry. I just came up with it. I hope it's funny. But it's
true,
just a
though.
standard.
You
know what I mean?
The tried and true SM58, and I think that that's something to have pride on, because it's just completely durable. And yeah, he was mentioning the PDFs on SHURE's website.
Yeah, definitely check those out.
I checked those out, and it shows you just the diagrams, literally the early, you know, like sketched out diagrams of, you know, the mic torn apart, and like the fact that it was at one point, I believe the 55 in its early days was just like this brick standing there.
Yeah,
you know, and then they took that apart and built from the actual center design. You know.
Yep. And I mean, during that time, that was almost, I mean, Industrial Revolution, that's like turn of the century sort of stuff, you know, but during the 30s, late 30s especially, when we're kind of inching our way, you know, into war, there were so many technological advances that happened during that time, and the microphone's one of them, or at least the modern day, you know, dynamic microphone sure has a massive hand in that, and they're proud of the legacy. You know, it stands today. It's still relied upon today by artists of every genre of music. You know, it could be house of worship, you know, praise band. It could be gospel. It could be, you know, I mentioned Metallica earlier.
Right.
You
and
know,
the presidents, like literally, like
presidents use it.
Yeah.
It's so really what that is. That's a testament to the versatility, the reliability, and just the history of SM58 and the Super 55, and really all of SHURE's microphones. So.
Right, and that's the biggest thing about this whole week, everything about, you know, the iconic mics is just shining the spotlight where, you know, where it's deserved.
Yep.
You know, the SM58 and the 55, like he was saying, just has so many things that have been consistent over the years, which is exactly why you should have one. Exactly why you should have one. And while I'm on that point, we will be doing a giveaway here at the end of the month, actually. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be really awesome. I'm not going to give all the details about how cool it is right now.
Has to do with one of these. We'll just say that.
Has to do with the SM58, and it's going to look pretty damn cool.
Yep. It's so yeah, guys. I mean, do we want to just like, subscribe, comment? You know, do everything with CA House here, and definitely enter. I know Danielle will have more info on that.
Yes,
but tell us. I mean, really, what we want to hear is how you've used SM58s or SHURE microphones in your own music and performances, and you know, even outside of that, if it's just like a corporate speaking thing,
right?
Or, you know, and we just want to hear all those stories, because really what this whole week is, it's a celebration of, and you know, we've been saying it, iconic microphones, and what's more iconic than the SM58 and the Super 55,
right?
For sure. So yeah,
definitely. All your stories, comment below, and I'm actually on our Facebook page. That's where our giveaway will be happening at. So we can link all of that below if you're not already following us or liked or subscribed. And yeah, like he was saying, just the stories with it, whether it's a funny story, whether it's something that, you know, you went to this concert and you saw that, you went to this speech, you know, and you saw this, and it just really stood out to you. Because I can tell you, there are certain performances that I've went to see that, because of the clarity of the microphone, because it sounded like that, because they used it for exactly what it was meant to be used for, it just seriously enhances performance.
Without a doubt.
You know?
Yep. And, I mean, SHURE's used all over the world. You know, it's just this. It's not just a United States thing. You know, it's everywhere. Yeah. Which is awesome. But yeah. Thank you, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, definitely get with CA House if you have any SHURE questions or need any microphones. They will definitely help you out.
We'll be sure to hook you up. I am filled with the cheesy jokes today.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you guys as always, and be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and stick around for some more.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.